Hi, all. It was nice spending time with you yesterday, getting to know you. I enjoyed sharing with you a little bit about mindfulness, and I wanted to take a few minutes now and run through the bookmark handout that you have. Just to understand, or for me to share with you a sense of what I perceive to be the relationship between yesterday's conversation and today's, is that the cultivation of greater mindfulness allows us to, during moments that are challenging, for which we may not be at the top of our game, or we may be in some ways affected or influenced emotionally or cognitively, to be able to realize it, and also realize it with the wherewithal to be able to pivot and do something in those moments that might be helpful. So I think the practice of mindfulness, it's safe to say we have less of those moments. And when we do have those moments, we notice them, we see more clearly what's taking place, and we're better able to pivot and do something that can be useful. This is about what we might do in those moments to be useful. So we could say that these are about changing our state of physiological arousal in a constructive, deliberate, intentional way, and that the practice of mindfulness is to enable us to realize at various times when the challenges that we're meeting and the internal capacity and wherewithal we have to meet it might be such that a little assist could be helpful. Again, I very much believe that practicing mindfulness on a regular basis and many other things that we might do to help cultivate greater present moment mindful awareness will serve us well, so that as moments are arising where there's confusion or the likelihood of confusion, even if you're not working on a trademark matter, is such that you're able to see more clearly what's taking place, and just the seeing it more clearly, not having assumptions, biases, preconceptions get in the way, itself paves the way spontaneously and naturally and effortlessly and without having to do anything to pivot to a smoother ride through moments that otherwise might be choppy. So let's get to it. The physiological side. As I mentioned, when we went through the article by Judge Gold, the next piece is one where I write a little bit explaining some of the physiological effects taking place when we do the physiological side. Also, that there was a study out of Stanford a while ago that demonstrated the efficacy of this as a quick practice to be able to self-regulate an agitated physiological state of arousal. So the instruction on the back is to inhale, to quickly inhale again, and then to slowly exhale. And each of those is important. The slow exhale is important. A slow exhalation is helpful just as a general matter for bringing about a more relaxed state. And this interesting two-part beginning, which is to inhale, and it's really a full inhale, and then the quick inhale again goes like this. I'll demonstrate it, and then we'll do it together if you'd like. So, beginning now. So if you'd like, let's do this together. We're going to inhale fully, then a sharp inhale, then a slow exhalation. We'll do it twice. All right, 3, 2, 1. And again. All right, the physiological side. If you practice it and get familiar with it, it's pretty simple instruction, you'll find pretty quickly whether or not you find that it can be useful to you. Practice it at times like now for no good reason other than just to sort of recalibrate. But then bring it into moments where you're feeling a little foggy, scattered, worried about something, and keep checking your phone or whatever the case may be, and see if it allows you to sort of down-regulate that agitated state and sort of get back on track in a way that you naturally will do when we clear away the obstacles. All right, that's the physiological side. We just did it twice. And doing it twice might be quite sufficient and may be very practical in terms of time. But if you were to do it longer, I think the research itself was for a certain period of time, pitted it against other techniques and practices for the same length of time, maybe 5 minutes, and that's what the research looked at. Anecdotally, many people report that, and most importantly, you'll find for yourself, if you're interested, the degree to which it can be effective. I would say do it for 30 seconds, for a minute, and you'll get a sense of a dosage that ought to, or is likely to yield, benefits if it's going to offer you that. All right, we're going to jump past the stop practice because we did that at the end, and we'll close with that. Then we have box breathing. Now, there's many other types of breathing practices that involve inhaling slowly and exhaling slowly. We did that. I like to call that line breathing, like a line. There's triangle breathing where you inhale for a certain count, like 4 or 5, and then exhale for that same count, and then you hold the breath. Or you inhale for a certain count, you hold the breath, and then you exhale. Some people love the breath holds. Some people do not like the breath holds. As we're holding our breath, carbon dioxide is building up. Of course, if we did it long enough, the oxygen would become absorbed and utilized, and the carbon dioxide will build up, and we get what's called starvation for oxygen. You know what that's like. Of course, these practices don't go anywhere near that, and there's no threat to a reduction in sufficient oxygen, but the carbon dioxide buildup, we have sensors that detect that buildup and begin to give us a very early warning sign of like, I need to breathe, I need to breathe. So some people find that even for a few moments of holding the breath, they begin to feel that antsiness. And so not breathing practices that involve holds are not necessarily for everyone. However, many do like breathing practices and find them useful. The Navy SEALs have, I think, been one of the groups that have sort of popularized it in terms of a serious group that has serious work to do, that operates at a very high level, and finds it to be very useful. Sort of, I think in some cases it's talked about prior to doing the thing that they're getting ready to do, to really sort of put themselves in a very steady, good place for the endeavor that's about to follow. So you might find when you're sitting at your desk and you're getting ready for your day, you do a little box breathing, and it sets you in motion well, or you take a break during the day and do it, and it can be done in all of a minute or so. And so here's the instructions for box breathing. It sort of tells you here to inhale, hold, exhale, hold, and then to do that several times. People will often do it for, say, a count of 4 or a count of 5. The key is for you to find the count that is comfortable enough for you so that it's a little slower than you normally would breathe, a little fuller than you normally would breathe, but not a strain, not effortful. And so, and even the count to say 4. Some people's 4 might be 1, 2, 3, 4, and somebody else's 4 might be 1, 2, 3, 4, which would be somebody else's 5, say. So but the count can be helpful for you to sort of note to yourself, because in some ways it also is focusing your attention, very good, attention, on the count. So I'll demonstrate it, and I encourage you to right away join in with me if you'd like. I'll be doing it like internally to 1, 2, 3, 4, but obviously I won't be saying that because I'll be doing it. So exhaling as we begin, and now beginning. I'll do it one more time. Inhaling. All right, box breathing. And if you wanted to do triangle breathing, all you got to do is just knock off one of those holds, and that would be triangle breathing. There's also wonderful, many from many wisdom traditions and secular scientific sort of approaches to the usefulness of breathing practices. There's also different counts like 4, 7, 8. In fact, I have a practice that I developed 15 years ago called the learned hand exercise, where you bring the hands and breathing together, and it uses the count 4, 7, 8. If I remember, I'll send a link to that, but you can find it on YouTube if you want to look for it. Scott Rogers' learned hand practice is probably the only time, in fact, I'm sure it's the only time that learned hand and Scott Rogers have appeared together. All right, then we have our what's called the but-for pause at the bottom. Now, you may recall in that last practice I did at the very beginning, I said bringing ourselves into a comfortable seated posture, the body upright and stable, steady, as we lower or close our eyes and rest attention on the sensations of the body sitting, something like that. And then I said noticing where the body makes our bottom or the body makes contact with the chair. And then I said turning attention and noticing the sensations of the hands, resting one in the other or on your lap or by your side. And then I said turning attention now to the sensations of the feet, making contact with the ground. Well, that's the but-for pause practice. On the back it says, breathe a little slower and observe the sensations of your body sitting, your hands, your feet. And you're probably saying, Scott, why do you call it the but-for pause? Well, a couple of reasons. One is because, and we can of course draw from our recollection of law and the but-for cause, that but for that thing, this thing wouldn't happen. And we can think, sometimes a pause can be quite useful. No, and again, I'm going to just come back to this. How does the mindfulness piece fit in? Because the pause and the breathing is not necessarily the mindfulness practice. It's the awareness that we have in moments to actually engage in a pause. And then, of course, we can engage in the pause in a very intentional, mindful way where we're very aware of what we're doing. But even if we're not aware, we're paying attention, we're focusing on taking slower, deeper breaths, the taking of the slower, deeper breaths in and of itself will be sufficient to, in all likelihood, meaningfully shift our physiological state of arousal. So it's called the but-for pause because, bear with me on this, the but and the for pause, making contact with the chair and the hands and the feet. And so when you're in court or you're in your office or you're at home or you're waiting in, sitting in a restaurant waiting for something, wherever you might be, especially if you're sitting, you can just shift your attention and do the but for pause. All right. I was wondering for years, what should I call our little corgi? And then I thought to myself yesterday, I don't know how this idea came to me. It just sort of came to me like a flash. Monty, calling him Monty. All right. And then we close with, as we did when we were together, the stop practice. And the stop practice is an acronym, and this is one that really does straddle the relaxation or the mindfulness practice, because the focused attention practice we did yesterday really was a stop practice where we stopped, we paused, we then took a few slower, deeper breaths, but it's really just the taking of the breath with awareness of breathing. And then we spent a little time observing. And so how long you spend in the O zone is really going to be an indication of whether it's a formal mindfulness practice or a very short, sort of, what I like to call a present moment pivot, just pivoting to be a little bit more aware of our present moment experience. So if we take the instruction to stop, take a breath, aware of the breath, or attending to the breath, whichever term suits you, we observe and then we proceed. So when you get to a stop sign, and that's what's nice about this, there are signs, more signs than we might realize if we are paying attention. When you get to a stop sign, it can be your reminder when you're driving or being driven to practice stop. It's a sign. And so we'll close with that as we stop or pause. And thank you for taking the time to watch this. We take a breath, and this is where you have a choice. You want to feel a little more relaxed? Take some slower, deeper breaths. You want to simply zero in on the mindful awareness? Then just be aware of the breaths you're taking. I'll slow them down. It's a nice thing to do. So take a breath, slowing it down. There's somebody at the door. Oh my goodness. And then we observe things like sounds coming and going. Now here you could sit for as little or as long as you like, but if you're at a stop sign, probably won't be long. Just enough to feel a little bit of the angst of the car behind you, even though you're just stopping for a split second. It's interesting the things that we notice sometimes that can be interesting tells on ourselves. And then we proceed. All right. So I hope that's well. As I indicated, there are many signs that come our way, and the utility and the usefulness of breathing, pausing to breathe, can be quite helpful as a meaningful adjunct, complement, and really part and parcel to a mindfulness practice, living life a little bit more mindfully aware, with mindfulness practices being one of many ways to help cultivate that, but a pretty direct route to cultivating greater present moment awareness so that our life in the law and our life might be especially meaningful, rich, and or at least it's one thing that we can do among many to support that important and meaningful endeavor. Again, thank you all for the work that you do. Thank you for my little takeaway gift. I'm going to use it to hydrate, another important consideration. Wishing you all well.